the theme overall the last few weeks has been, the players versus the owners. A deal has to get done. And for the most part, if you heard, I've been on the player side. I think they're advocating for the right thing. I think they should really fight as much as possible to not get a second pay cut. And I do think it's on the owners to kind of pick up the tab here in this weird, shortened, obviously pandemic stricken season. To me, they're the ones with all the money. I think they're trying to cry poor, and they are the ones that should be picking up more of the bill than the players. And I do have a bone to pick with both. And I'll get to the players here second. I do want to start with the owners because after the show on Monday, there was a new proposal that came out by MLB that I thought was great for the owners. I mean, great for the players, 76 games. The prorated salary was not 100%, but it was 75%, so it was pretty good. They can actually make more money off this deal than a shortened season with full guaranteed contracts. So I'll discuss that a little bit. Why, for me, I'm curious. When I ask these players, is it more about pride or is it more about the money? I'm kind of confused on which angle they're on and which side they're on. But I want to start with the owners. And this question I want to bring up here is, are the owners actually lying? Are they liars? Are they telling the truth when it comes to financials? And here's why. A few weeks ago, we talked about Tom Ricketts and his comments that he made to ESPN when he was discussing his financials. He was saying basically, look, MLB owners, we don't really make a profit. Whatever we churn, we bring in revenues, whatever the expenses are, whatever that lump sum is after the expenses are taken out, we put that money back into the team. Whether it's through stadium renovations, whether it's through player salaries, hiring, extra staff. Tom Ricketts claims that at least basically all the profits, all the money that's made after the expenses are taken out are put back into the team. And then on Tuesday, St. Louis Cardinals owner Bill DeWitt Jr., he was on 590 The Fan in St. Louis, and he wanted to claim that basically owners don't make as much money as you think. And Tom Ricketts, said that, fans think that they're sitting on this massive amounts of cash, that they're not. They're not pocketing all this money. They don't have these massive reserves they can call upon in times like this. And Bill DeWitt Jr. basically tried to echo that, and he was on 590 The Fan in St. Louis. He claimed, and he said, quote, "The industry isn't very profitable, to be quite honest." And that brings me to the question of whether the owners are lying or not. Because now this is the second owner to cry poor, right? Tom Ricketts, first of all, tried to have this sympathy card painted for him that, hey, listen, we put all the profits back into the team. We are here. We're here to win, and we do everything possible to put the best product on the team forward. Now you have the Cardinals owner coming out basically echoing that, saying, listen, the industry isn't very profitable, to be quite honest. We don't make that much money as owners of the team. But one thing that kind of contradicts what these two owners are saying, and it's a phrase we've heard for a very long time, not just in baseball, but any sport. X League is a business. The NFL is a business. The NBA is a business. MLB is a business. So with that said, anytime we hear negotiations, right, whether it's a player asking for more money and the organization trying to negotiate with them to lower that price, we always hear it's a business. We like this guy. We hope to get him on our team. We want him here for a long time, but it's a business. We have to make sure what's financially sound for us makes the most sense. You hear players talk about it all the time. The first thing to learn when they become a professional, or maybe the first time they negotiate a second contract, it's a business. You're going to be honest. It's about X's and O's. It's about dollars and cents. And for the most part, these owners aren't buying teams to try to win titles. They're not fans like me and you where they buy your favorite team so they can put money into it and try to win the World Series. For the most part, it's a business venture where they try to make money, right? That's the whole point of owning a team. You try to turn a profit, try to make as much money as possible, and that's why you do it. It doesn't make much sense. If it doesn't make dollars, it doesn't make sense. That's how owners operate. And we've seen that come to light with contract negotiations and other things where money is first and foremost. So after we heard and after we keep on getting drilled in our head, sports is a business, sports is a business, sports is a business, I want to ask this question then. If the industry isn't very profitable, as Bill DeWitt Jr., owner of the Cardinals, is saying, why would anyone buy a sports team? Why would anyone buy a sports team that's not profitable? Or in some cases, baseball specifically, why would anyone buy a team that operates at a loss? Last year, the Brewers claimed they operated at a loss. Their expenses were higher than their revenue. Variety just had an interesting article last week about the Mets, because the Mets and the Wilpons are trying to sell the team. They have a few interested buyers, and in the article explaining the Mets' finances, they claim the Mets lose $50 million a year. Two teams, the Brewers were pretty good last year. They made the NLCS 2 years ago. Small market Milwaukee. Mets a bigger market, obviously the biggest market, media market in the U.S. in New York. Up and down, passionate fan base. Both of those teams claim to have lost money last year. So I'm curious, and something's really not adding up. If baseball wasn't profitable, if Tom Ricketts claims that all the profits they make go back into the team, if Bill DeWitt Jr. claims that the industry just flat out isn't profitable, owners don't make that much money when you own a team, something's not adding up. Why would you buy a team then? Why would you go through that headache? Why would you shell out all this upfront cash, billions of dollars, as we just saw the Kansas City Royals, the latest example, were sold for $1 billion. So you're not buying low and maybe sell high when you're done. You're buying in high and hope to sell higher. But something's not adding up here, because one of two things are going to be true. I'm going to lay out two situations here, because only one of them can be true. Either the owners truly are making zero money, and they are the worst businessmen in history. Because think about it, revenue's only increasing, right? You heard me on the show now, but it feels like 3 or 4 weeks in a row, hammering home the point. Revenues have increased 17 straight seasons in baseball. Last year, they brought in $10.7 billion. So not only are revenues increasing, the payroll of the players is decreasing. Revenue's up, expenses down, but they still can't turn a profit? It's not that profitable? What business do you know that revenues increase, expenses decrease, but the owners can't make money? That doesn't make sense. So either that's true, they're the worst businessmen in history, that they can't turn a profit when revenues are increasing and profits are decreasing, or the other thing can be true, they're covering up for massive gains that they are making, and their goal is in trying to make it seem like they're getting less money than possible, keep the players' salaries low. Hey, listen, we only make this amount of money. You can maybe, whether it's hiding money, whether it's not claiming this sort of money as a revenue, and basically try to keep the players' salaries low as possible so that more money goes into their pocket. Hey, if I don't have to pay a Bryce Harper $300 million, that's $300 million that I can put away and put it in either another business or just put it in my pocket. So only one or two things can be true. Owners are the worst businessmen in history. As money goes in, less money goes out, but they still can't turn a profit. Or they're lying, they're covering up, and they want to keep players' salaries low as possible. In doing so, you have to lie and say, hey, listen, we don't really make that much money. You know, you're trying to vilify us, the billionaires. We're not bringing in money. All of it goes back into the team. It's not profitable for us. The players are the ones being greedy here and trying to take us to the bank. Well, really, we don't have that much money to begin with. For me, I think it's number two. And here's why. I think they're covering up for massive gains, and they're trying to keep the player salaries low as possible. And here's why. The numbers bear it out. So like I said, 17 straight seasons. And I apologize for sounding repetitive. But I feel like I have to keep hammering home this point because that's what I keep going back to as to why the owners keep complaining that they don't make that much money, but it doesn't make sense. So revenues keep on increasing. Again, 17 straight seasons where revenue has only gone up. So impressive by Major League Baseball to only keep the cash flow coming in. Even during the Great Recession back in 2008, revenue just kept coming in. So as revenues keep on coming in, you would think the player salaries would keep on going up. More money in. That means more money after the expenses are taken out. Okay, sure, we'll shell out a bigger contract for maybe a player to deserve it, but we have all this money. We want this guy, we like him. We'll overpay a little bit just to get him on the team. It would just only make sense. The more money the owners have, the more they're willing to spend to get a better team. And obviously, you got to spend money to make money. But the player salaries have not bore that out. They've only, if anything, stayed stagnant at best, let alone decrease. So this year, the average salary for Major League Baseball was supposed to be $4.4 million. Obviously, we know that's not going to be the case. That was going to be in a normal year, 162 games played, no pandemic, no coronavirus, fans in the stands, a normal year, $4.4 million. Since 2016, so it's a 4-year gap. So from 2016 to 2020, the average MLB salary combined has increased 1%. So in 4 years, salaries have increased by a total of 1%. So despite revenues continuing to increase, despite MLB only having, again, the money come in, get higher and higher and higher, whether it's through online streaming, whether it's through marketing, they brought in a ton of money. But despite revenues increasing, salaries have increased a total of 1% in 4 years. And not just that, not only have they basically stayed stagnant for 4 years, despite the money coming in, getting higher and higher every year, and record revenues repeating over and over. 2018 and 2019, the average MLB salary decreased 2 years in a row. You know the last time that happened? The last time the average MLB salary decreased consecutive seasons? Never. MLB started keeping track of average annual salary starting in 1967. So for that entire time, guess what? Salaries have never decreased, player salaries never decreased 2 years in a row until 2018, until 2019. Think about that. I'm no math guy, right? If you listen to the show, if you know me, you know math is not a strength of mine. I went to journalism school at Penn State. I did not do anything with math. And if you heard me try to do quick math on the show, it's been painful, and I apologize for you have to listen to it because it's been tough. It's been very tough. But no math major has to break it down, to be a math major, I should say, to see salary is decreasing, but revenue is increasing. Something doesn't add up. And I said MLB salaries have increased a total of 1% since 2016. So basically 0.25% each year it's gone up, barely crawling. MLB revenues have increased 4% each year over that same time period. So the owners are bringing in 400% more revenue each year compared to what the salaries for MLB have increased. So something does not add up. And I go back to the two options I laid out. Either the owners are making zero money, and they're the worst businessmen in history, because their increases and their revenues, have increased 4% each year. 4%, 4%, 4%, 4%. Each year they're increasing by that much. Salaries are decreasing. Again, the first time in MLB history since they started keeping track, 1967, that salaries have decreased consecutive years. $4.41 million in 2018, $4.36 million in 2019. 2 years in a row, they've decreased average-wise for the first time in MLB history since they started keeping track. So either the MLB owners are the worst businessmen in history, because despite revenues increasing, despite payroll decreasing, somehow they can't turn a profit, is mind-blowing. It feels hard to do. You have to be an awful businessman to have that happen. Not to mention, for the most part, a lot of these guys made their wealth through other businesses. So it's not like they're just bad business owners, or in the case of, let's say, a James Dolan, where you get inherited from your father and he does all the work and you basically now are sitting on this fat wad of cash that you're trying to manage. A lot of these owners have worked themselves, are good businessmen. So I find it hard that all of a sudden they forget business 101. They forget how to churn a profit while revenues increase and profits decrease. So to me, 100%, they're covering up for massive gains, so they're trying to keep the players' salaries as low as possible. They want to get as much money for themselves as possible. So that's why something doesn't end up. When you have Tom Ricketts come out last week, and now Bill DeWitt Jr., the Cardinals owner, come out earlier this week and claim that the industry isn't quite profitable, to be quite honest. Quote, "The industry isn't very profitable, to be quite honest," so the Cardinal owner said earlier this week in St. Louis. Well, Bill, the money that we laid out here says you should be profitable. Quick math shows, yeah, you should be making money and making a lot of it. Think about it. If your revenue is increasing 4% every year, while at the same time MLB salaries are increasing 0.25% every year, you should be making a massive profit from that. But instead, somehow they're not. So they can try to tell us we don't make any money, try to cry poor, try to have us understand, hey, listen, being an owner is not easy. We don't make that much money. I know we paid $1 billion to own this team, but guess what? We really make pennies on the dollar every single year. It doesn't make sense. No smart business person, no person has that much money, would spend and shell out billions of dollars, and then on top of it, shell out hundreds of $1 million year after year after year to get, let's say, what, $1 million profit they can take home with them. It's too much of a headache. These teams are sitting on massive amounts of revenue, massive amounts of cash, and they do not want us to know about it. That would hurt all their leverage and really force, I think, the public outcry against them to get a deal done and put even more pressure, more scrutiny on the owners as to why a deal hasn't been done so far. It's June 11th, by the way. And the deal is not done yet, which I want to get to here in a second. But something doesn't add up. Revenues increase, expenses decrease, somehow profits aren't made. One of the two, owners are lying or they're awful businessmen. I'm going to number two. I think they're lying for sure, trying to keep player salaries as low as possible. So I'd love to get your thoughts. Do you buy this? Again, we talked about Tom Ricketts last week. Now it's Bill DeWitt Jr. of the Cardinals this week. Two owners on the record claiming that they don't make a lot of money. But the simple math shows you they should be making a ton of money.